She never went to China. Hello and welcome to the Treasured Page. I'm Melanie and this is our quiet crafting space. And today I'm having a look at my Marianne North book, which I've been reading from in real time on the Dephemerember challenges. And each day I'm learning a little bit more. And it's in my mind that from Japan she went to China. I'm thinking she went to Shanghai, which isn't such a short journey from Japan and would make perfect sense. But she never went to Shanghai. She went on to Singapore. So she never made it to China. Instead, she goes to Singapore. She paints these beautiful fruits. She went because she was so cold. She couldn't go to China because the weather conditions weren't right for her. She wasn't able to go to China because she didn't have letters of introduction. And she was a woman travelling on her own. It would be absolutely unheard of in 1876. So she goes to Singapore and she recovers, where she was able to meet up with friends and people that she knew and people that she could stay with. So these are the beautiful paintings, all from Singapore. And from Singapore, she doesn't travel to China because it's impossible for her. So China was never on her list. She goes instead to Borneo, somewhere completely remote, somewhere totally off the map. She goes to Sarawak in search of the pitcher plant, and what she wants to do is find something that no one else has found before and put her name on the map in the botanical world. Which means this symbolic journaling piece here, this lucky coin or fortune coin from China or Chinese culture from the Ming dynasty, is not correct because Marianne did not go to China. So I need to take this off. I was under the impression that she had, because why would you do all of this travelling around the world but miss out China when that is the most exciting botanical finds are in and from China? And we know all of this because Arthur Bully from my previous journal, who was a cotton merchant and a botanical scientist who was born in Cheshire in England, very close to Liverpool, he was the supporter and benefactor who provided lots of funding for expeditions to go to China, and that's where they discovered many species and really interesting botanical finds, things that Marianne had never seen, hadn't been to, and never painted. So Arthur Bully's intrigue there was because Marianne North died when Arthur Bully was in his 30s. So actually, this coin is in the wrong journal. This coin belongs in Arthur's and Harriet's journal because they discovered the botanical finds in China, not Marianne, and that's really interesting. So I'm going to add this to my journal here. So this fortune coin is going to come and live in the French Linen Botanical Journal, which was inspired by Arthur and Harriet Bully. And they were, of course, botanists and gardeners, helped to shape the world of the 19th century through botanical finds from Tibet and from China, from the Himalayan mountains and the Alpine regions. It needs to come and live in here and be part of a much later date, which was the 1900s, which was the early 1900s through to 1920, and that is all part of that era. So that is now in the right journal, thank goodness. But I do want to have a charm on here, and from the original necklace I've got this one, which I much prefer actually, because the colours completely blend in with colours I've already picked out intuitively when I first started doing this, before I even knew where we were heading, because I've not read the book, I'm reading the book every day. So I had no idea that she was going off to Borneo next. I thought she went to China. but she doesn't. She doesn't go to China, and I've got that into my head and I've got muddled. So there we go. So what I'm going to do now, and is part of the prompt, is page tabs. And I think that will definitely help me. I'm getting a bit lost in the journal, and it'd be quite fun to put down where everything is, where she goes, all the different countries. There's 15. I'm not sure if I want that many page tabs, but I'll certainly pick out the main ones. And then I'll know where she goes, and that will definitely help. Oh, that's much better. I actually prefer that. There we go. And that even looks more in keeping with the journal now anyway. So we've got that right. So the prompt today is to make page tabs, and it's prompt 19. And I had these made very early on in the challenge because I was showing how I did the felting. And I've got these scrap pieces just from a demonstration. So I'm going to cut them and make them into tabs like this. This will be the page tab, and they'll go on there like that. That's the fabric part of today's challenge, because we're looking at fabric and page tabs. So we want fabric page tabs. That's okay. But I also want to bring in my labelling of where she actually goes so that we don't get muddled as I go forward. So the animal that has been given today is the snail. This is the bane of the gardener's world. So a slug and a snail is never very welcome when it comes to cultivating, particularly vegetables and fruit. So although the snail has its destruction and devastation within a gardener's world, we cannot argue that this swirling pattern and the shell and the whole concept of a snail and how it carries its home on its back is an utterly fascinating. That teamed with the colour patterns and these beautiful sort of swirls that go across a shell, and the markings are truly unique and amazing from an artistic point of view. And I think you may see some of the patterning here as the snaking, sort of the twisting, and echoing some of what you might expect on the patterning of a shell to be part of a curve, a curving piece, an organic swirl, a twist, a spiral. So with that in mind, the twist and the spiral, I will bring elements of that into the tabs here, which I've already got anyway, because there's this twisting, waving movement going through there. But also I did look at my lace and webs, and just looking at how that swirls round and echoes a sort of idea here with this circular patterning that you can see in a snail shell. So you can see these elements here. But what I want to do is I want to cut down these, and I don't need them very wide, and we'll just see how many we can get. So that one was quite wide. They can be as thin as that. I think that we'll get away with that. And we'll probably get 2 out of this. So that was 3 there. And then we'll see what we can get here. 1, 2, 3. I think I'll have 2 more there. So those are my page tabs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 8, 9. So I've got 9 there, and then we can maybe look at some lace ones as well. Then I've got this fabric. This was the rusty scrap, the leftover from the project a few days ago. And then I've got this fabric here, which I like the blue and the rusty orange patterns there. So I can tear a few bits off of here. So just ripping down some fabric. And then what I want to do is I want to age my words, my place names. So we've had America, Canada, Jamaica, Brazil, Tenerife and Japan. We've been to Singapore. We're off to Borneo, Sarawak, Java, Sri Lanka, India, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the Seychelles and Chile. These are all the places that Marianne went to over her working life when she was actively painting. And if you're just joining into the story of Marianne North, she started her journey in 1871 when after her father died, and she was 40. So when she hit 40, she'd realised she wasn't going to have a family, she didn't want to get married, and she didn't want to give up her freedom and find a husband. As much as she may have liked to have done that, it just meant that she wouldn't have been able to be free and do the things that she ended up doing or wanted to do. So she decided that wasn't going to be for her. I'm just using some rusty hinge ink, layering and blending, adding some colour over the top of the printed writing just to give my paper some interest and take away the white. Using my very grungy ink dauber, I'm just going to add a little bit of this ground espresso just to come in as well and really give that aged feel. And then no piece of paper that has lasted that amount of travelling is going to be perfect. So we just scrunch it up and age it. All right, there we go. So we may have to do a repair there. And I'll just repair Tenerife that got torn. Never mind. All adds to it. Okay, so I've got my name places all tatty and worn. Put those to one side and let's have a look at this. I'm also going to be bringing in my eyelets because I'd like to punch these together and secure them with eyelets. These are going to be the page tabs. So let's imagine that this is our page. We're going to be gluing it front and back there. And then I'm going to punch a eyelet, and from here I'm going to have something swinging off of it. And here we go. If this helps anybody, they are eyelets. These ones came with washers. I don't really use the washers, so you just really need the eyelets, and they are the 3mm from the UK. That's how you find them. Otherwise, in the US and other places, you might find them as 1/8 of an inch, and they are eyelets or grommets. I know them as eyelets. And it took me an absolute age to find that, so I would have appreciated if somebody had told me that, so that's why I'm telling you. So it means if you've got something like this, you're going to want the smaller size, and we're also going to have to punch through 2 lots. But this is felt, this is normal felt with some wool. You can stick the wool on top, you don't need to punch it on like I did with a felting tool. You can just stick fabric onto felt. So I've left myself enough of an opening to glue to a page so it could look like that, and that would be the tab, and from here we're going to have something swinging off of it. So I've got my eyelet in there, and I just want to squash that shut on here, and then there we have our little tab. So I'm going to take this, and I've got a piece of spare greeting card or packaging card. Okay, so here I'm going to take the name that I want to have on here. I've got America as my top one. So we're just going to take that because this is the first place that Marianne visited. Very exciting. She went with her friend Mrs. Skinner. Although they fell out, she had a very nice time with Mrs. Skinner in the sea when they were all relaxed and had some fun in Massachusetts in her house up on a hill. And it was only when they started to embark on a proper journey, and then Marianne's first sight of Niagara Falls was just breathtaking, and that was that. She couldn't wait to paint it. She didn't want to hear another word from Mrs. Skinner about fancy hotels and parties and what to wear and what not to wear. She was done. She just wanted to do what she had came to, which is immerse herself in nature. And so Mrs. Skinner got sent home. And that was the end of that. I'm sure Mrs. Skinner got over it. She sounded like she had a lot of friends. And Marianne never went back that way again. She always went a different way. So they must have They must have embarrassed themselves enough. So let's tear a bit of this off. So the card is the thing that's strengthening it up. And then this is the scrap that we've had the other day. So just making sure that it's a little inked around and finished off around the edge. I don't really want it any wider than that. So I'm going to be using a strong glue because I've also got fabric here. And just pushing the glue around so it overlaps because I want my fabric to stick at the edges as well. So I'm just going to put a bit round the edges. And then a little bit more glue on the top. Then add the fabric. And then I'm adding the place name. And I quite like that because it actually looks a little bit like land, mass and sea. So that's quite fun. And this is what we have so far. And then I'm just going to put a hole in the top using the smaller hole. Just punch that out there. And that has gone through several layers. Then I'm just adding an eyelet there as well. And then just squashing that down. And that's what it looks like with the eyelet in position. So that's now my American tab using fabric. And we can hang these off of the pages, and they can sort of hang off of other things as well. It doesn't have to be these page tabs, but I have sort of, in my mind, I'm going to have it swinging off of there. Okay, this one is so cool. It's got a bit of chain link in there and it swings and it's going to dangle down. I love that. Singapore, let's get Singapore on the map here because I obviously need to be centre map so that I can understand the distance between Japan and Singapore. Is actually a very long way, isn't it? So she was travelling from Japan to Singapore in chronic pain. What an amazing woman to do that, because she had to get to somewhere warmer to feel better, because she knew that the warmer climate helped her. It just made her feel better. Perhaps it made her feel better in herself, but it also seemed to have a physical effect on her arthritis or rheumatism and the pain that she was in. So we still don't know today some of the answers to these ailments that we have even now and suffer from them. So it must have been absolutely excruciating when there's not much that she could have had, although they were able to give her morphine even then, so that was something at least, but then that would have left her unable to paint. So it was a very, very difficult thing that she did, and she completely going against what she knew and what was done. She just took it all in her stride and did it her own way. And she is a real inspiration to women all around the world of what she could achieve. She had made a decision, and that must have been very hard to turn your back on a life of what was usual and expected to be somebody's wife back in that time, and a mother and all of that. But if that wasn't possible, if that wasn't a possibility for her, because she was now older and she'd been asked to look after her father, so perhaps that ship had sailed for her. And so this was how she left her mark on the world, how she left her legacy. So she doesn't have a family of her own, she hasn't had children. But it doesn't matter one bit to Marianne, because she wants to leave her legacy is not going to be her children, but her paintings are her children. Those are the things that she's created and leaving a lasting legacy. And it's at this point that she decides that she would like to have these paintings collected in all one place, and to mean something. She wants her life to have meant something. And so this is why she decides that she would like to have a gallery dedicated to all of her artwork. and it is her idea, and she commissions a architect to build a special building. But first, before she can do any of that, she'd have to seek permission from Kew Gardens, because that is where she wants her artwork to be displayed. And so that comes later on in the story, but it's about now when she's realising that she's got all these paintings. What is she to do with them all? And how can she give a gift to people at home, to be able to show them exactly what it is like in places that they are never likely to visit. And this is why she decides then she would like to go to places that people can't get to, unknown places, places in Borneo where few people have ever gone before. You know, if you think 150 years ago, they wouldn't have had anything there. It would be just jungle and river and indigenous people. Incredibly brave when she's going to another culture, not really knowing what to expect and just hoping for the best. Very brave lady. Okay, so here we have all the little name places, and these are the ones yet to do, but I think it might be quite nice to not overcrowd the journal with too many of this style, and then we'll bring in another style later on for the other places that we haven't yet listened to. So for the ones that we have got, I'm going to just set about adding them into the journal, and they will just be swinging around in various points and places. And also I've got some parts to this journal where the pages come in a bit, such as this one here in Japan. It may be quite nice to have the page tab set inwards so we haven't overcrowded it all on the outside. So that is also what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so using Fabri-Tac, I'm just going to put these page tabs in places where I can see I have been journaling for that particular country. So Brazil, we've got that there. Okay, so I'm going to have it there, and then I can have another one up there somewhere else. But I can't put it anywhere else because I've got this tag, so it's going to have to come there. Living down further down. And then it doesn't interfere too much with what's going on up there, but it's a nice little bit just dangling out the side. Looks lovely. I like that. Come up here with it, and we'll have Japan there, and then that still functions as a pocket, but we've also, because that is Japan, because we can see Mount Fuji there. Probably like to do more journaling in here on that theme anyway. I've just noticed that little section there where I think a tab could live. I'm going to put America, because this is where she went on her second leg of her American journey, to go and paint the trees in California. So we're going to add that in there. And then that's nice because that will dangle there and not on the outside. So we've got some dangling in, some dangling out. Okay, and I might want more to do with Canada on these pages here, so I might leave that free for more journaling, and I'm just going to hang Canada off of there and give that a bit more of a space. And then I think I'll be able to bring in other journaling pages and ideas about Canada over here, and that brown sort of ties in, so that's okay. I have just realised I've got this which I haven't opened, so I'm going to cut this open. That just hid the binding. So we just open that up, which gives me now a nice little pouch pocket. And I can add in the spare tabs for the time being. So we'll add in all the tabs in there, plus the ones that we're yet to do. So those are the labels for everywhere else. And now I've got a clearer picture of where I'm going. That will help with the journaling. And what we'll do is we'll add the little snail card on there, because he can come and live in the garden and he's great. So we'll maybe cut him out and give him a bit more of a scene on the front there another day later on in the month. But that's how I'm leaving that. And here they all are. So they're looking really rather good now. Really interesting. And I think what we'll understand later on is Marianne North had lots of things, lots of labels and names of all the places she visited in her gallery. So she definitely would have approved of this lineup of labelling in this quite overpowering way. This was definitely what she would have done. And I'm leaving this bit free because I know I'm going to want a binding to tie it all together. But these ones are going to live here. They're going to just swing out, dangle around and just look fun. And then you can see we've got quite a collection there and still space for a few more on this side. And then that will just add to the whole abundance that is this project. I really think that's great. I like that. And then that's how that looks. And so the lace, I may bring that in for another project, but I've actually really enjoyed just doing that now there with the fabrics, and it ties in with the colours. So there we go. I'm really pleased with that. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that's been fun for you, and above everything else, just slow down and make crafting time for you. Bye bye now.